So we have, I think, the most ideal three people in the panel that who can give us that insight. And I would love to you guys to explain, like introduce yourself before the panel and tell us like what you guys are up to.
Hello everybody, my name is Coach Wei. Great to meet you all. So right now, what I've been doing is I've been a researcher at MIT, and also I'm the CEO for NeuroGalaxy, which is a brain science company. And my background is I went to undergraduate at Tsinghua University here. Then after undergraduate, I went to MIT for graduate study. The last 20 years, I've been spending most of my time in tech. So I built a software company, I built a cloud service company, I built an AI company. So this is the fourth one, which is around brain science.
So good afternoon. We are actually from a private equity company, and mainly focusing in the medical devices industry and orphan drug. So we are trying to looking for cutting edge companies or products or potential entrepreneurs. So anyone that interested to starting your own company, you can find us. My name is Chilin Chang, and we have few colleagues from same company. And what we are trying to do is to helping the companies to grow up, to find a right person and right technology to use in the market. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shanzhen Luo. You can call me in Chinese Luo Shanzhen. So now I'm the CEO of Lezhi. In Chinese is Lezhi Fang, which is a kind of a multidisciplinary team. Kind of like we have people from the medical area, nursing, social worker. Have you heard about a social worker? Yeah. Okay. And then also nutritionists, dietitian, psychologists. All kinds of people to get put together, have a multidisciplinary team who provide one-stop solution for the people with dementia, mainly dementia, also like Parkinson's, but we kind of concentrate on dementia now because the people with dementia they're gonna rocket to 152 million in 2050, so it's a huge market. And also, that's kind of the most vulnerable population in the world. So that's it. Basically, a brief introduction of myself. I majored in history, like from the Nanjing University, and then later in 2006, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, to study gerontology. So that's my kind of brief academic experience. Yeah, thank you.
So we have a creator, and we have an enabler, and then someone who's working at large-scale impact of this topic. So I think the questions can go from here, right? So we had a presentation and understood like what this BCI is about, like brain-computer interfaces are about. So one of the things is that we listen faster than we write, so that our input and output has humongous gap. So one of the questions that I want to ask you guys is that how do you see BMI as a general topic? So you can give an answer from your perspective. So what does BMI mean to you?
Yeah, BMI for me is like brand new things because when we work with the people with dementia, we come to adopt those traditional ways, face-to-face, and more like person-centered care. So we feel like kind of weak because basically now you don't have a lot of things to do for them. You tell them care is the important things, or you talk about the environment, you talk about communication, but that's not enough. So I hope the BMI can do a lot of things for the people, like the early detection or even the current accurate diagnosis, and also for the further treatment. Because now if you diagnose with Alzheimer's, for example, because Alzheimer is one of the biggest type, because dementia is a huge range of diseases. Alzheimer occupy 60% of them. So I really think BMI can do a lot of things because things you really don't have a lot to do now. Why not try some new path? Yeah.
So like I said, I have been benefits from BMI. I don't have any surgery anyway. I just want. I been very difficult to sleep. I mean the sleeping difficulties I had while after my mom died. So I had a treatment with non-invasive EEG. So EEG. So with that 30 minutes treatment, I think my whole life has been changed, and I can sleep very well. That not only because I know EEG, and also I've been working for the medical sector for more than 12 years. So I know how to use the devices to help myself, but I'm willing also to take the further trial, like the invasive or BMI or technologies, if in the future. Thank you.
Can I say something that will get myself into trouble? You guys want to hear that? Okay. So my opinion, BMI is bullshit today. So don't quote me on this. I'll give you a perfect example. So Huijong showed that video a moment ago. The video you showed, you wear the EEG device, look at the numbers. That's a total bullshit. I tell you why it's total bullshit. It's BMI trying to look for an application. But that scenario could be solved in a much better way. Today, technology is fairly good at tracking your eye movements. If you just use a lens, look at your eye movements, it could have found the number you're looking at very quickly and very accurately. You actually don't need a BMI whatsoever for doing that. And that's first. Secondly, in that case, it's not really BMI. It's really just capturing your visual signals, the visual system. It did not capture anything that's happened in your brain when the visual signal is captured, how your brain processes it and eventually generate the representation of the number. So in some ways, cheating. Right? So BMI, BMI, I think the two ways to go for BMI. A, it needs a real scientific breakthrough. The BMI as a technology has been around for many, many years, for decades. The most popular technology that is BMI today is what was mentioned earlier, EEG. Right? EEG has not really changed for many, many, many years. What EEG can capture, what EEG can do is very limited. That's one of the biggest challenges for BMI. How can you capture brain signals with sufficient spatial resolution and temporal resolution? That needs a breakthrough. Elon Musk is trying to do that. I think his approach has a lot of problems. So that one area needs a breakthrough. Secondly, for the companies that's building on BMI technology today, the only direction you can go to is try to find a meaningful application based on what the technology can do today. So what you mentioned a bit earlier, Brainco is a very interesting company that I know fairly well because we're all from Boston area. And they did a great job because they found a good application. There's really two ways to go. For BMI to really grow up, either you have to go find some really interesting application that can be sufficiently addressed by the technology today, or somebody has to go figure out how to make some real technology breakthrough.
Thank you so much for that insight, because this is getting more fun right now, because I wanted that to come up with Coach, because so we've been looking at these videos, right? So you guys have seen these videos of Neuralink, that people can download memories, that people can actually control devices. More than that now you can see that people can download skill sets. That means I don't know how to learn and speak Japanese, and I have a button, I push it, and then Japanese already is in my brain right now. So it's really exciting, right? So like the future is really amazing because it's been done by PR and marketing agencies, not by scientists. So that the real question here is then, Coach, is that I think we've always been limited by engineering. So tomorrow we build a bigger telescope, we'll see a better part of the sky. When we build a smaller microscope, we'll figure out new species. So it's an engineering challenge. But if we take this engineering and tooling and this BMI concept out of the equation, how much do we know about the brain? Like how much do we, like with the current technology breakthroughs in 2019, how much do we really know about the human brain?
My opinion is we know almost nothing about brain. Well, the best example is this. Like you mentioned some of the brain disorders earlier. Alzheimer's is a great example. Alzheimer's right now, I'm sure you guys have heard of the clinical trial stories that's happened in the last few years, including the one that's so-called approved by CFDA called the GV971. That's in China. And the previous one from Biogen in US, right? They say it failed, then 3 months later, no, it did not fail. We still have a chance, right? So Alzheimer's trial projects right now at the US, there are about 160 projects in clinical trial for Alzheimer's disease. 40 to 50 are in phase 3. What that means is to get to a phase 3 project, it means you would have spent at least tens of millions of dollars or billions of dollars investment rate to get to phase 3. And 40 to 50% of those phase 3 projects are targeting at something called amyloid beta as a target. That target itself is very questionable. It may not be the right target at all. That's why you look at Alzheimer's research. For tens of years, we have literally made very, very little progress. We are completely in the darkness. We are guessing. Really, we're just guessing. We have no idea what's the mechanism of that disease. We have no idea why and how it happened. We don't even know how to measure it. We found something called this, amyloid beta in the CSF, central spinal fluid or something, CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. And we think that's correlated to Alzheimer's disease. That may not be the case at all. Just because I have nothing else to go for, so we are going for that. To the degree we have 40 clinical trial projects at the phase 3 going for something like that. This may all fail. So that's a perfect example. We are so much in the darkness, it's complete guessing about what's going on. I'll give you another example, brain surgery. The two brain disorders typically require surgery. One is called brain tumor, which is a form of cancer. Your tissue is growing uncontrollably. The other one is called epilepsy. So 30 to 60% of patients require surgery. Surgery, what it does is the neurosurgeons will open your brain and remove that tissue, remove the tumor, literally cut it. But one of the biggest challenges in cutting that tumor is that surrounding that tumor, that may be a language area, that may be a motor area, that may be the key areas of your brain that's supporting your function of your entire person, your entire body. If somehow during that surgery the function area is being cut, then afterwards you cannot talk anymore, you cannot understand speeches. And that obviously is a huge problem. You would think that this is a very fundamental need, very fundamental requirements that we would have figured out already. Unfortunately, we have not. Doctors are guessing, like 99.9% of doctors, when they remove the tumor, they actually have no idea what they're cutting. It's totally based on guess. So it's scary to know this. I did not know this before. After I learned about this, I was praying, never get the tumor because it's so scary. The doctors have no idea what they're cutting, right? So nevertheless, I think our understanding of brains is still in the very beginning. And this is one of the most important ones, last frontier for humankind. We need to understand our brains.
Thank you so much for that. So then there's a difficult question for Jilling, right? So I actually came up with the questions prepared before, and then after hearing the panel, I completely changed my questions.
Okay.
So the question is that now you announced and said that we are a private equity firm and there's amazing scientists, researchers and engineers. looking at projects and applications around BMI and they come in front of you. Opportunity is what? $980 million market, right? But at the same time, we are in completely darkness, according to Coach Wei, right? So how are you evaluating such projects? Because this is a deep tech field, such as has not explored to a level. So now there are potential applications and like Neuralink and these people come to you and say like, give us money, we are going to find that breakthrough. So what is your way of evaluating that risk and the opportunity?
I'm really to fight, you know. No, actually the problem, let's say the question is all the companies are facing. Like our Coach Wei, Mr. Wei said that the doctors are in darkness. The doctors are not knowing what they are cutting. However, it's not that are really in dark. Because in 10 years ago, we might think we are hardly to say so we can change our nerve or euro, but we can do it now. So if you only concentrate on the BMI, definitely you are in the darkness because you have no other assistance. We do have when you're cutting something, yes, the doctors might not knowing, but we do have other products to replace, to make the reconstruction to that cutting tissue. So if the BMI, let's say how we evaluate, how we see the projects might able really we want to invest. Yes, the market is big, but the difficulties that we are facing is all the money may go like the water, never going back. And we are not able to facing our LPs. So definitely the projects has to be really based on the ground. It's not like you give me some idea, let's say you are making BMI, what you are reading from others' brand that make something really cutting edge, but that cutting edge may not able to commercialize because you are not connected to the different field. So you have to working with neurology, neurology, or you have to working with the BMI, with the devices, with different. So from our point of view, we do have our different backgrounds of our managers that's in different field. Like I'm focusing on the devices. We do have focusing on the drugs and different fields of expertise to evaluating the projects are coming really can make it or not. But in terms of the BMI, we have been seeing many of our motto or BMI really connecting to, but none of them are really can make it, but it is opportunity. We love to see the cutting edge and we love to trying helping those entrepreneurs or let's say the technology into the market. Maybe not our 100% BMI, but we are helping. Like our coach, we said our EEG has been developing many years and never been or have further developed, or maybe because the development cannot be agreed by all our clinical trials. However, we are making actually the progress. We do, I give an example, the nerve, we can do the reconstruction, we can do the neural. In the same time, I do believe Alzheimer is another problem in the future by 5 to 10 years.
So I want to extend a little bit on that question. So when companies come to you, you look at early stage, groundbreaking ideas, or else more matured, proven ideas when it comes to investment? It's
depending. In a company that I'm working right now, definitely they are looking for more strong on consolidated project. But I also helping those entrepreneurs to have our funding from those investors, but not from the company that I working for. So usually we connecting to different stage of other company to working together.
Thank you so much. So now we have a breakthrough idea, breakthrough value, and then we have a way to fund it. So now it comes to you, right? So you are the one that was working with patients or communities and like trying to figure out like how these technologies can be applied for masses, right? So what are the current technologies that you are using in your day-to-day activities? And then how do you see the impact of these technologies growing? And then again, especially I'm looking at like, price point. Like for example, most of these machinery, if they're expensive, the access or the, a lot of people cannot use it because it's expensive, right? So when you're looking at like, applying for masses, so what are the technologies you are currently using in the current process? Other than that, like, what is your whole opinion towards this thing? Because it's a very big policy question also. So I want to understand, like, when these technologies are getting applied for your current practices, what are the hurdles that you need to go through to be able to just like say okay for these things?
Sure. To be honest, there's not a lot of those kind of technology applied to people with dementia. The only thing kind of close to this BMI thing is a kind of this computer game to train your cognition, like those cognition training games. In the United States, have you heard about Lumosity, something like this, those kind of company, yeah. And in China, they have some 66, something like this, but not really popular among the people with dementia. It's because the people with dementia, especially the people with Alzheimer's, they are very individual. Even they have the same disease, their symptoms are quite different. With the progress of the disease, they changed, really. So it's so hard to predict. So basically, I don't currently, without those scientific breakthrough, without those engineering breakthrough, there's not a lot of things to do. That's why we kind of adopt those traditional way to take care of them, because I do think we something like us, our team, should like to collaborate more with those scientists, because they basically don't know the patient with dementia. I talk about the holistic human being, not like basically you treat them like a subject, like those experiment subject. So that's kind of partially answer your question, right? Policy, I really don't think, it haven't got to those kind of phase, saying like the policy maker, saying like something can do, something cannot do. Not to those kind of phase yet. So hopefully with the progress of the scientific, we will, really get to the question, try to understand what policymakers should, pay attention to.
Okay, so one of the words that keep on coming from three of you guys was like this word called breakthrough, right? So breakthroughs need to happen by engineers and scientists in terms of like, to really change the paradigm, right? So it's not an innovation, an invention needs to come out in this space to find that breakthrough. So I want to ask Coach one question. What are you and your company doing differently than everything in the market to achieve this breakthrough?
It's a very good question. But let me address the one question you asked a little bit earlier about investment. And
so this is getting hot right now.
So no, I don't think we're in contradiction. So this is what I believe is this, right? In the next 100 years, the two most important frontier for the humankind, brain and the galaxy, space exploration and the brain. We understand very little about neither, but we have to understand both. That's the really biggest challenge, the biggest frontier for the humankind in the next 100 years. Obviously, from investment perspective, we don't really care about 100 years. We want to look at maybe 5, 10 years. In the next 10 years, I believe the brain science will become a $1 trillion industry. There will be probably 2 to 3 $100 billion plus companies in the general brain science area. BMI is part of the general brain science. Brain science has a lot of other things. Right? The reason I would say that is here's why. Right? So the 3 aspects of brain science, the most fundamental part is that to understand the basic mechanism about how the brain works. So that's really science. But based on the science, the two fundamental needs that need to be addressed, need to be solved. The most obvious one is brain disorders. There are 10, 20 different brain disorders. Alzheimer's is just one of these. There are lots more, like depression, autism, epilepsy, schizophrenia, and so on and so on. We understand very little of any of these. We have no solution for any of those. And brain disorders impact about 1 billion people, 1 billion patients in this world. In China, it's several tens of millions people in China. Those people, they need a solution. You think about that. What is most important about human being is our brain. The moment your brain is having an issue, most of the time, your entire life is destroyed. And more frequently, your entire family is destroyed. It's there to support you. They have to help you through tens of years. It's a tremendous burden. These things need to be solved. There's huge need, right? And the brain science is at the point of time, I think we are seeing the possibility of solving those issues. So we are very close. The other aspect is about AI, about consciousness, about understanding some of the fascinating subjects. We, human beings, we have been guessing for thousands of years. For example, do we have a soul? What is consciousness? What is soul? What is intelligence? We need to understand this because we invest a lot of money in AI in the last 10 years. And we know a lot of limitation in the AI today. For AI to really make progress, we have to understand our brain. We have to understand the other aspect. I chatted with people a bit earlier, like meditation. And our consciousness. What are the aspects that controls of our brain? This is fascinating. You think about your brain, right? It's a physical structure. You open it, you look at it's tissue with some bones, with some blood vessels. You put it back together. Voila, for no reason, it has consciousness. Seriously, it has intelligence, it can think. And it can feel happy, it can feel sad. This is the most fascinating subject in the entire universe. How did this happen? Is it because of God? Is it because of something else? We really don't know. We need to know. We want to know, right? This is one of the basic desire of the entire human being for the last millions of years. We create stories. We say, we create the stories. We made up stories about soul, about ghosts. These are all solutions people have been looking for 1,000 years. We did not have a solution before, so we say, we have ghosts, we have God. Maybe there is God, maybe there are ghosts. We just don't know. But we want to know, right? But we are at the point of time, I think we're very close to a lot of those.
I'm actually pretty speechless, and I'm so sorry for the audience who actually came here to thought that we are at a point that all of a sudden there's this magic machine that we can put in our head, and then all of a sudden we're going to just transform into Matrix. But there's an interesting point came out of this conversation with Coach, is that basically that means that this is a very deep science, or else core technology, whatever that needs to find a breakthrough to be able to come and really have an impact that is actually we want to see. But the question drilling right now is that this is the problem is these things are happening at labs, or else universities, let's say very amazing academic professors are coming up with these crazy algorithms, and then now they need to commercialize this. So the commercialization is what you guys are investing in, right? So my question is that, since the topic is from how far away from academia to commercialization, my question is that what can these academics do differently that can be more, I would say more appealing for an investor to put the money in?
Sorry. Now I'm really have to say we're in the darkness. Usually our professors, researchers when they are coming to us, they bring the ideas, and when we ask the question, we make hundreds questions they have to answer before they're really trying to meeting us. So usually when we help them to give a clue to try to reach that level we really want to give money, they don't know how to answer. Let's say I give you an example. I met our professor from US and from very top, I would say, luckily that we are in the group of all other private equity investors. So he came to us, he received Harvard, medical certificates. I would say he's really experienced and trying to solve the Alzheimer problem with the BMI, let's say, our technology. However, it's hardly to break through the deployment. Since everything is new, we have no other methodology or any backgrounds to prove that you can protect it or you can make it through. So the investment is really huge. This is why we say we're in the darkness, because we, as a one investor, we are not able to bring this technology to the world. We need more investors. Maybe we need more these kind of events.
So I would change the question a little bit, because right now I feel like this is a problem of a dictionary. So we have a very new topic. We need to come up with a dictionary to be able to express our findings and knowledge to an investor that who might not have that dictionary to understand or speak in the same language or the wavelength, right? So my question is that, so when these people come pitch you, are they more technical pitching, or else like are they pitching in terms of like really a ROI in return?
Both, I would say. But I can give advice if really they are trying to bring this technology, or maybe Ms. Lu willing to receive our funds to helping accelerate their business. We are really trying to give you advice is you have to understand yourself. You have to understand how far you can go for future and what you really have, what you don't have. We are not only giving you money or offering money, we're offering kind of our services that maybe you don't have, people, technology in other area. I mean, you already have most of the area you needed. However, this is a complexity. It's not only for the BMI. You need in a different industry to join together. So when they come to us, as I said, we give our list of questions. Most of them they cannot answer with the 50%, which means you are supposed to get this money from the government. From private equity is hardly to invest it because it's not able to commercialize.
So now the other question goes to Ms. Low, and so after hearing all these things, right, you guys all have the right intentions. So right intentions, scientist-wise, they want to create and find a breakthrough. Investors-wise, they want to create an enable these inventors and the solutions to go to the mass markets, right? My question right now is that out of all those diseases that you mentioned, which one is the most prominent one that you think that all these people need to come together and solve immediately for the next 5-10 years?
What kind of disease will be the most?
Let's say any type of application that you want to see in the next 5 to 10 years that you think is really urgent, because everything is pretty urgent. But if you can come up with let's say that out of these 10 problems, let's say I'm very fascinated about human happiness. If there's a machine that actually can tell me how happy people are and can increase my happiness, I would just buy right away. Yeah.
Seriously.
So my question is if you list down these questions, these problem areas, right? What do you think is that the least understood problem that we have and needs the most amount of resources going in for the next 5-10 years?
Cool. That's a really kind of a philosophy question. Something in my wish list, right? And also in reality, what things can be do. It's also kind of ethical things. Have you heard about story? The usually used to be the richest man in China, Chen Tianqiao. Heard about it? No, not really. because he invests a lot of money in brain science. He moved to Los Angeles, I think, California or somewhere, to talk about those top scientists, to invest a huge money, basically all the money of his, to those kind of science, because he's suffering from depression. And also, like, you know, when he was the richest man, he suffered from panic attacks so frequently. That's why. So basically, you know, in reality, I think Parkinson's disease probably will be the most promising, and also those kind of mental health problem should be like more, because people kind of know the mechanism, what caused those kind of things. Because if you know the reason, you know the cause, then you can get those solutions easily. But for example, Alzheimer's, those kind of disease, it's so hard because people don't know what happened. That's kind of, you know, my understanding. For example, your question, like how to make people happy, I don't think so, because in my opinion, people should, you know, experience a variety of feelings. Don't make people like too simple, because complexity is the essence of life, I guess.
Yeah, like talking about this, there was like one really amazing research that had a machine. It's a philosophical question that there's a button for happiness, and they did a research with like a lot of people and figure out whether you would click that button or not. So that the findings that come out of that research was also like really amazing. And so I'm like, there are a lot of investors, like Boshao is one of them that's like putting 100 million, like, you know, into that. I'm part of TTA, like the Transforming Technologies Academy in Palo Alto. So there are like a group of people that were called as like consciousness hacking, trans tech. There's like different things of new science fields are coming out to study consciousness and like all the brain sciences, etc. So my question is that, like from Coach, like a very different angle, I want to ask you, like, you know, out of all your work, right, what is the most amazing thing that you've discovered, like by looking at these brain images? And you can come up with a dictionary that the audience that understands, like, you know, what we figured.
I want to talk about happiness first.
Go on, yeah.
That's a fascinating subject. So we are building a system that will do that. Seriously.
I'll be there on Monday.
And we are partially this is philosophical question. Right? Happiness, if you look at the physiological level, is essentially is neurological reactions in your brain. That neurological reactions can be created, can be controlled, can be modulated using technology. That is very possible. Obviously, we're building a device not for happiness per se, we're building a device to deal with depression. But it's the same effect. So in my point of the brain science, I talk about a little bit earlier that we are in darkness. I don't want to create a sense that, you know, we are hopeless. We're not. In fact, we are very close to solving a lot of those problems. At us, at the New Galaxy, we are going to have products coming out, starting from later this year, next few years, to solve a lot of those problems. And I know other companies are trying as well. Like Elon Musk, his company Neuralink, though I think they have a lot of challenges, but you can never underestimate Elon Musk. I don't know what he will do next. But his current approach is probably going to be very challenging. But I think he will evolve, he will do something in the next few years that will probably have some meaningful impact. So nevertheless, you look at the brain science, we have not made the progress for many years, but we have accumulated a lot of knowledge. We actually are reaching the critical point of some explosion. I think it's just happening in the next few years because we can see that, and a lot of other people can see that, right? A lot of approach to solve those problems. Come back to the question you asked a little bit earlier, right? One of the biggest breakthroughs that our team made, not me, like I'm not even a brain scientist. My team is really primarily the three scientists. One is a professor at Harvard Medical School, and two professors at MIT. Those are world-class professors. They spent the last 10 plus years. Made some really important breakthrough in brain science. that becomes the foundation for us as a company and for a lot of other things going forward. What that breakthrough is essentially is this. It's about understanding the function of your brains. What that means is that we all know the concept that our brain is responsible for all the functions of the entire body, entire person. And different regions of your brain is responsible for something different. We have heard of concept like your brain has a language area that's responsible for your language. Your brain has functions for like a motor, for your hand movements, your tongue movements, your leg movements. So different areas of your brain are responsible for those different things. When a problem happens, like a disease happens, typically it's one of the function areas or one of the functional networks is having a problem. That's actually the root cause. The challenge is, so far, we have not been able to figure out how functions are located, distributed on individual brains. For example, for you, Beeman, where is your language area? Where is your motor area? Where is your execution, abstraction areas? We know those exist. We just don't know where they are. We don't know what the status of this, right? If for some reason you had an issue, let's say, 500 years later, if you live that long and have Alzheimer's at that time, we couldn't figure out which part of your brain is having the problem. Alzheimer's is really a function area deficit. It's really the function area responsible for memory, dementia, right? That's having a problem. If you can figure out where to locate it, find it, and measure it, and quantify it, that gives us the mechanism to understand what happened. That also gives us ways to figure out how to treat it. That's just one example. Most of the brain disorders are functional issues, not structural issues. What that means is, if you have depression, if you're autism, you have Alzheimer's, you have any of those brain issues, you go to take a picture, take an MRI scan in the hospital, or do whatever you do to look at the structure of your brain. Nothing changes. So you cannot really see anything. That's why it's so difficult. It's very similar to computer problems. Like 99.9% of computer problems are software problems. You open up your computer, the chips, the circuit boards, they're all fine. There's no problem. Brains are very similar. Most brain issues are functional issues. Without a way to analyze functions on individual brains that's accurate and reliable, we will not be able to understand the mechanism of those brains, let alone figuring out how to treat those issues. Right?
I'm gonna go with another question. So now there's a question about high resolution machinery and then low resolution machinery, right? So for example, that means there's a lot that we've already developed. For example, the number of electrodes that were there before has massively reduced to 3 electrodes, 2 electrodes, can still pick up alpha, beta, gamma, the brain waves, and it can still be used for different type of things. And we have a new subject called digital therapeutics right now coming into the market. So my question is that you have lots of patients that using simple techniques like gamification, like focus on attention, how are you just handling change of information inside a screen to assess these kids or patients in this area. So my question for you, Ms. Luo, is that how are you seeing this gamification or digital therapeutics coming into people on a daily basis? And then again, how are you just pro towards this topic, or else are you not pro towards this topic? Imagine there's a company coming and tell you there's 5 games you play and then we help you to just do early detection of ABC. So this trend of entrepreneurs and scientists coming together and work with what they have already. What is your opinion towards this? For example, there's no fancy, crazy drilling in your brain and putting chips in, but there are existing hardware right now that can come up with very simple applications. What is your opinion towards this trend in terms of giving it to patients and testing it out?
Sure. First I would like to correction one of your opinions. Alzheimer's basically is structural change on your brain. So it's not just their functioning change. About the simplified games, right? Basically, I don't know, because if you know Alzheimer's, you know their long-term memory actually kept pretty well, and then the short-term memory kind of, get destroyed. So I usually recommend we don't call them patient, because more like, people with dementia. If they're in their early stage, or early to middle stage, we kind of recommend to do some training things. But if they are kind of a mid or the late stage, basically it will be really, really hard for them to learn, because their learning function actually change too, get decreased pretty fast. So, but let's go back to a little bit earlier. If you want to do the early detection, that's a really great way to do that, because it's more like, simple. And also, I do recommend, how many people here like over 40s or 50? No? People are really young, right? Because usually if you do the training really like middle age, that should be really helpful. So basically, I would like to put the age, for a little bit earlier. Even, how about start now, even in your 20s or 30s. No harm to do those kind of training, yeah.
Okay, so I think with this question, I want to open the questions to the audience, and we can have a couple of questions with the feedback, like our great panelists like give them a round of applause first. And
I just have two comments. One, I think digital therapeutics is great. We have limitation in the technology today. Like we talk about BMI, EEG, they have limitation technology today. But that does not mean that useless. Right? There are right applications, those technology can make a difference. Right? So I think that is one of the areas worthwhile going into, particularly for what is for investment or for starting ups. There are right applications you can go after. And the second comment is about Alzheimer's. One of the biggest challenge of Alzheimer's is most of the brain disorders happen this way. Alzheimer's example. First, it's functional change. That goes on for years. Then you start to see behavioral change. Because of behavioral change, you go to the hospital, doctor will sit down with you, ask a bunch of questions, and say, okay, you got Alzheimer's. Then you have structure changes, or at the time you have structure changes. The issue with Alzheimer's is by the time you are being diagnosed, it's too late. There's no way to reverse it. So the challenge is how you can diagnose it way before any structure changes, way before any obvious behavioral changes. Can you do that? The answer is yes. It's very doable. We have done quite a few very recently.
We do invest the companies that's in the early stage of the diagnosis, so it's not it's in reality. And I also really agree with Ms. Low. We have to enter it in the early stage, or after 25 or early stage of 30, you have to really understand what is your gene carry with, and you really have to understand what are the heavy diseases, or those are non-solvable or diseases maybe you have. With the technology we have, we really can help.
So I think so the question is for the first one, for AI machine learning one also, so I work very actively on that space. So apart from pattern recognition, right now we are using AI for filtering, so more intelligent adaptive filtering, because the raw signal that is coming from the sensor itself has a lot of issues because we don't know what it should look like. So there's a lot of prediction that is going on to do adaptive filtering, and just getting that is also machine learning. So it's not just you're using, collect a lot of people's data and coming up with prediction, but there's a lot of machine learning that is applying before that stage happens. So Inception is that I'm not a very big sci-fi movie fan when it comes to
okay, so Inception is means that put an idea in mind.
I watched the movie, but what I'm telling is in terms of but this is already happening, Okay, you don't need inception. So if I actually go for so I work a lot with magicians designing their hardware, and the other thing is they're using this thing of thought planting techniques. So that means I can just let you think about something. For example, if I draw here a number 9 upside down and I don't even tell you to look at it, that goes very subconsciously in your brain, and when next time I ask you to pick a number, that you can pick number 9 even though you haven't seen the form of 9 the same way that you should. So that is what we call as thought planting techniques, and you don't need to have invasive technique to plant thoughts. Magicians are doing it all the time. So when you want to go for more complex scenarios, there's also point where in REM sleep, when you go in there, if I can go to your ear and then keep on talking to you certain things, your brain actually registers that information, and I can activate and reactivate it at a different point of time. So we've done a lot of experiments and stuff around this space just to to say that it's real. But the point is that when it comes to a machine going and planting and simulating a thought, that's a very different thing that has not been, I don't know, I haven't seen anything that is actually build a machine that a thing. And another question is that should we have it to begin with, right? So the fundamental question about conscious engineering or engineering is that certain things we should not build because we can. So that's how we create chaos and open boxes that we should never be open. So let's stop there in terms of engineering wise. BMI is figuring out brain machine interfaces, right? There's a lot of interesting people in this room and a great panel. Our talk should be diving towards to a point that what can we do with this knowledge to improve humanity, create more impact, and come up with useful and most crucial applications to problems that need solving. So I think right now the biggest problem is not coming up with a solution. Using a scientist, using an investor, and someone who has deep understanding with people can come up with a solution. But the problem is that is that problem worth solving? So once we understand, figure out problems worth solving, then last thing we would solve is actually inception.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for a great panel, and I really thank you guys for a wonderful time, a good afternoon spent, and we can move on with the networking session, and you can ask other questions with the panelists and myself also, and have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.